"I will cook for you daily, make me your wife," Apache woman said. What Cowboy did next. The sun was just rising over the wide land when the cowboy guided his horse toward the river. The sky was pale orange, and the wind carried dust and the smell of dry grass. He had been living like this for years, moving from place to place, working when work was available, sleeping under the open sky. People knew him as a quiet man. He spoke little, trusted slowly, and kept to himself. Life had taught him that being alone was safer than being attached. That morning he was not expecting anything unusual. He planned to water his horse, rest for a short while, and then continue his journey. But life had a different plan waiting for him near the riverbank. As his horse lowered its head to drink, the cowboy noticed movement near the trees. His hand tightened slightly on the reins. Out here, surprises were rarely good. He stayed still, watching carefully. From behind the trees stepped a young Apache woman. She looked tired but not weak. Her clothes were worn and dust covered her shoes, but her eyes were sharp and alert. For a moment, both of them froze. The river kept flowing, as if nothing important was happening. The cowboy slowly straightened his posture. He did not reach for anything, and he did not speak. He had learned that calm often prevented trouble. The woman raised her hands slightly, showing she meant no harm. She took a slow step forward. Her voice when she spoke was steady. "I am not here to fight," she said. The cowboy studied her. He had met many people on the frontier, some kind, some dangerous, many desperate. This woman did not look like someone looking for trouble. She looked like someone who had already faced too much. "I just need water," she continued, gesturing toward the river. He nodded once and stepped aside. "Go ahead." Pull. She walked to the river, filled a small container, and drank. The silence between them was heavy but not hostile. When she finished, she looked at him again, this time with curiosity. "You live alone?" she said. It was not a question. The cowboy gave a short smile. "Seems that way." She sat on a nearby rock, clearly exhausted. The cowboy hesitated, then dismounted and let his horse rest. He kept a respectful distance. Something about the woman made him uneasy, not out of fear, but because she challenged his usual way of keeping people far away. "My name is Naya," she said after a moment. "My family is gone. I have no camp now." Out here, everyone carried loss. Asking for details often reopened wounds that never fully healed. "I'm Jacob," he replied simply. They shared the quiet for a while. Birds flew overhead, and the river reflected the sky. Jacob noticed how Naya watched the land as if reading it, understanding signs he could not see. "She belonged to this place in a way he never would. You don't look like the others," she said suddenly. "Others?" he asked. "Men who pass through?" she answered. "They look at the land like it owes them something." Jacob looked down at the ground. "The land doesn't owe anyone anything. That's why you're different." The word surprised him. Compliments were rare in his life, especially from strangers. He didn't know how to respond, so he stayed quiet. After a while, Naya stood up. "I should go." Jacob felt an unexpected sense of disappointment. He did not understand it. He had lived alone for so long that he thought he was used to people leaving. "You're welcome to walk with me for a bit," he said before thinking too much. "It's safer than going alone." She studied his face carefully, then nodded. "I will." The conversation came slowly at first, then more naturally. Naya spoke about the land, about how her people lived with it, not against it. Jacob listened, truly listened, something he hadn't done in years. As the sun climbed higher, they stopped to rest. Jacob pulled out some food and offered it to her. She accepted with a quiet thank you. The simple act felt strangely meaningful to him. That was when Naya said the words that changed everything. "I will cook for you daily," she said calmly. "Make me your wife." He stared at her, certain he had misunderstood. "What?" She did not look embarrassed or uncertain. "I am tired of running. I want a home. I see how you live. I can help you. I can share your life." The directness of her words left him speechless. No one had ever spoken to him like that. There was no hesitation, no game, no demand, just honesty. He stood up and began pacing. His thoughts raced. Marriage was not something he had ever planned for. His life was simple, quiet, and lonely by design. Letting someone in meant risk. It meant responsibility. It meant change. "You don't even know me," he said finally. "I know enough," she replied. "You didn't threaten me. You shared your food. You listened." Jacob ran a hand through his hair. "This isn't something to decide quickly." But I had to say it. They stood in silence again, but this time it felt different. The air seemed heavier, charged with possibility. Jacob looked at the land stretching endlessly around them. For years, he had told himself that freedom meant being alone. But now for the first time he wondered if loneliness was just another kind of cage. "I can't answer you today," he said honestly. Naya nodded. "I will walk with you for now." As they continued their journey, Jacob felt the weight of her words follow him with every step. He didn't know what he would do next, but he knew one thing for sure: his life would never be the same again. Jacob walked ahead while Naya followed beside him, her steps light but steady. The land stretched wide in every direction, quiet except for the sound of the wind brushing through dry grass. Neither of them spoke for a long time, yet the silence felt full. Jacob's mind kept returning to her words. They echoed in his head again and again, refusing to fade. He had lived years without plans beyond the next day. Wake up, work, move on. That was his life. Now, with Naya walking next to him, that simple routine felt unsettled. He kept glancing at her from the corner of his eye. She walked with confidence, as if she knew exactly where she belonged, even without a home. By midday, the sun grew strong. Jacob stopped near a cluster of rocks that offered shade. He tied his horse and sat down. Naya did the same, carefully arranging her things. "You don't have to stay with me," Jacob said at last. "I won't stop you if you want to go your own way." "I know, but I choose to stay." No one chose him. People usually passed through, stayed briefly, then disappeared. He nodded slowly, unsure how to respond. As the hours passed, Jacob noticed small things. Naya gathered dry wood without being asked. She shared stories about plants and which ones could help with pain or hunger. When evening came, she cooked a simple meal over a small fire. The food was basic, but it was warm and comforting. Jacob watched her work. There was no show, no effort to impress. She simply did what needed to be done. The smell of the food stirred something deep inside him, something close to a memory of a life he once had but barely remembered. "This is good," he said honestly. She smiled softly. "Food tastes better when shared." They ate together as the sky turned deep orange, then purple. The stars slowly appeared. Jacob leaned back, looking up. He realized how long it had been since he shared a meal with someone without feeling rushed. That night they slept near the fire, keeping distance but close enough to feel safe. Jacob lay awake longer than usual. His thoughts were heavy. He wondered if her offer was born from need or hope. He did not want to take advantage of someone who had already lost so much. The next morning they continued traveling. They came across a small settlement by afternoon. A few wooden buildings, a general store, and people moving about their day. As they entered, Jacob felt eyes on them. He was used to being ignored, but now whispers followed him. He noticed how differently people looked at Naya, some with curiosity, others with suspicion. Jacob felt a tightness in his chest he didn't expect. Without thinking, he walked slightly closer to her. Inside the store, Jacob bought supplies. The store owner glanced between them. "Didn't know you had company," he said. Jacob paused. "She's traveling with me." The words sounded simple, but they felt important. Naya met his eyes briefly, her expression thoughtful. Outside, a woman approached Naya and spoke kindly. They exchanged a few words. When Naya returned, she seemed quieter. "They asked where I'm from?" she said. Jacob nodded. "People here ask too many questions. They fear what they don't understand," Naya replied. "I'm used to it." He realized how often she had likely faced this before. He wanted to say something reassuring, but wasn't sure how. As they left the settlement, Jacob spoke again. "Life with me isn't easy. I move often. I don't have much." "I don't need much," Naya said. "I need stability, not comfort. Marriage isn't just about cooking and sharing space. It's about trust, respect." She met his gaze. "That's why I spoke honestly." Jacob exhaled slowly. He admired her courage, yet fear still held him back. "People will judge. They already are." "Let them," she said gently. "Their words don't build our lives." Her confidence shook him. He had spent years shaping his life around avoiding judgment. Now she faced it head-on without flinching. That night, as they camped near a quiet hill, Jacob finally spoke what weighed on him most. "What if I can't give you what you hope for?" Naya looked into the fire before answering. "Hope is not something you give. It's something I carry." The simplicity of her words stayed with him long after she fell asleep. Jacob realized that she was not asking to be saved. She was offering partnership. Days passed like this. Walking, talking, sharing meals. Slowly, Jacob began to notice how his loneliness eased. He laughed more. He felt grounded in ways he hadn't in years. Still, doubt remained. He worried about making a promise he couldn't keep. One evening, as they watched the sunset, Jacob finally spoke with clarity. "I won't answer you yet," he said, "but I want you to stay. Not out of need, out of choice." "From both of us." Naya nodded, her expression peaceful. "That is enough for now." As darkness settled around them, Jacob understood something important. He had spent his life running from connection, believing it weakened him. But now, walking beside Naya, he felt stronger than he had in years. He didn't know what decision he would make in the end. But he knew one thing for sure. This journey was no longer his alone. And that realization both frightened and comforted him in equal measure. The land slowly changed as Jacob and Naya continued their journey. The dry ground gave way to patches of green, and the air felt softer, less harsh. Jacob noticed these changes, but what he noticed more was how much his own routine had shifted. He woke each morning not just thinking about the road ahead, but about the person walking beside him. Naya had become part of his days in a quiet, natural way. She did not push him for answers or remind him of her proposal. Instead, she focused on the present, finding food, setting camp, and sharing stories when the evenings grew long. Her patience confused Jacob more than pressure ever could have. One afternoon, they reached an old ranch that had been abandoned for years. The fence leaned, and the barn roof had partly fallen in, but the land around it was open and wide. Jacob stopped his horse and looked around. "I worked here once," he said quietly. "Long time ago." "Why did you leave?" Jacob hesitated. "The owner passed away. Diz, his family sold it. I moved on, like I always do." They walked through the empty yard. Dust filled the air as the wind passed through broken boards. Jacob felt memories rise, long days of work, shared meals with other workers, laughter that faded when the season ended. This place could still give life, Naya said, if someone stayed. The idea struck him harder than he expected. Staying had never been part of his plan. Moving meant safety. Moving meant he didn't have to build something that could be taken away. They rested there for the night. As the fire burned low, Naya told him about her childhood. She spoke of mornings filled with work, elders who taught lessons through stories, and evenings where everyone gathered together. "We never ate alone," she said, "even when times were hard." Jacob listened carefully. "I've eaten alone most of my life." "That doesn't mean it has to stay that way." The next morning, a group of travelers passed by the ranch. One of them recognized Jacob and greeted him warmly. The others noticed Naya and exchanged looks. One man spoke without kindness, making assumptions without knowing her story. Jacob felt anger rise in him. Before he could stop himself, he stepped forward. "She's with me," he said firmly. The words surprised him as much as they did the others. The travelers moved on, but the moment stayed behind. Later, Naya spoke gently. "You didn't have to do that. No one gets to decide your worth." That day, Jacob realized something important. He wasn't just protecting her from others, he was protecting the life they were slowly building together, even if he hadn't fully admitted it yet. As the days passed, Jacob began taking small jobs nearby instead of moving on quickly, fixing fences, helping neighbors, sleeping in the same place more than one night in a row. It felt strange, but also comforting. People noticed. Some were curious, some were cautious, but most treated them fairly. Naya helped where she could, offering skills she had learned growing up. Slowly, trust formed. One evening, after a long day, Jacob sat quietly, staring at the fire. "I'm scared," he admitted. Naya did not interrupt. "I've lost people before," he continued. "Not through anger or hate, just life." Naya nodded. "I lost my family too. But I learned something different. That love, even when it ends, is still worth having." Her words settled deep in him. He had avoided pain by avoiding attachment. She had survived pain by accepting connection. That night, Jacob dreamed of the abandoned ranch. Not broken, but alive. Smoke rising from the chimney, laughter in the yard. When he woke, the image stayed with him. The next day, Jacob made a decision that scared him more than anything he had done before. He turned his horse toward the ranch. Naya noticed but said nothing. When they arrived, Jacob looked around once more. "I don't know if this will work," he said, "but I want to try. I'm tired of running." Naya smiled, not with excitement, but with calm certainty. Trying is enough. They began cleaning the place, fixing what they could, making it livable. The work was hard, but it felt meaningful. Each repaired board felt like a promise, even if unspoken. As the sun set that evening, Jacob stood beside Naya, watching the land glow in soft light. He hadn't answered her proposal yet, but for the first time he knew he was close. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing. He was no longer alone by choice, and that choice, once frightening, now felt like the bravest thing he had ever done. Life at the old ranch slowly began to change both Jacob and Naya. The first few weeks were full of hard work. Every morning they woke up early, sometimes before the sun, and spent hours repairing fences, cleaning the barn, and fixing the small house. The roof still leaked in places, and the floor creaked with every step, but it was no longer empty. It felt alive again. Jacob was not used to staying in one place this long. At first he felt restless. Some mornings he would wake up and feel the old urge to pack up and leave before anything could go wrong. But then he would hear Naya outside, humming softly while gathering water or preparing food, and the feeling would slowly fade. Naya treated the ranch as if it were already her home. She cleaned with care, cooked with patience, and respected the land. She spoke to the animals gently and thanked the earth after a long day of work. Jacob watched all of this quietly. He realized she was not pretending or trying to impress him. This was simply who she was. People from nearby lands began to notice the changes at the ranch. A neighbor stopped by one afternoon, surprised to see smoke rising from the chimney. He greeted Jacob politely, but looked unsure when he noticed Naya. Still, he offered help repairing a broken fence. Jacob accepted. It was the first time in years he had accepted help without feeling weak. Not everyone was kind, some people whispered. Some avoided the ranch altogether. Jacob heard things when he went into town. Quiet comments, curious looks. At first it made him angry. Then it made him tired. Naya noticed his mood change and spoke to him one evening as they sat near the fire. "You cannot control what others think," she said gently, "but you can control how much space it takes inside you." Jacob nodded. "I know. I just never planned for this kind of life." She looked at him. "Plans change. That doesn't mean they are wrong." One night, a strong storm rolled in. The wind howled and rain poured through the weak parts of the roof. Water soaked the floor and the fire nearly went out. Jacob rushed around trying to block the leaks, frustration written all over his face. "This place isn't ready," he said sharply. "I don't know why I thought this was a good idea." She grabbed cloth, helped block the rain, and worked beside him until the storm passed. When everything finally calmed, they sat together in silence, exhausted and wet. "This is hard," Jacob admitted quietly. "Harder than leaving." "Yes," Naya said. "But hard does not mean wrong." Her calm response made him pause. He realized that whenever things became difficult, his instinct was to walk away. She stayed. The next day, Jacob rode into town to buy supplies. While there, he met an old friend from years ago. The man spoke openly. "People are talking," he said. "You should be careful. Settling down like this will bring attention." Jacob sighed. "I know." "You could still leave," the man added. "No one would blame you." The option was there, just like it always had been. He could walk away, return to the road, and live without questions or judgment. But when he saw Naya working in the yard, her sleeves rolled up, focused and peaceful, the choice felt different. That evening, Jacob struggled to speak. His words came slowly. I need to be honest with you. I'm listening. I'm afraid," he said. "Not of you. Of failing, of promising something and not being able to keep it." She nodded. "Fear is natural, but silence creates distance." He took a deep breath. "If we do this, if we truly build a life, I don't want it to be because you need protection or food. I want it to be because we choose each other." Naya smiled softly. "That is all I have ever wanted." Lighter. Jacob began to speak more openly. He shared stories from his past, moments he had never told anyone. Naya listened without judgment. In return, she shared her own memories, both joyful and painful. Slowly, trust grew stronger. One afternoon, a group of people from the nearby area came to the ranch. They brought supplies and offered help repairing the roof. Jacob was surprised. It turned out Naya had quietly helped some of them before, sharing food, offering guidance, treating them with respect. "People remember kindness," she told him later. That night, as Jacob lay awake, he realized something important. Naya had not only brought warmth into his life, she had connected him back to the world he had shut himself away from. Still, one final decision remained. The words she had spoken by the river had never been answered. A few days later, Jacob asked Naya to walk with him to the hill overlooking the ranch. The sun was setting, painting the sky with soft colors. The land below them looked peaceful, steady. I've thought about your proposal every day, Jacob said. She waited, patient as always. I don't know what kind of husband I'll be, he continued. I'm not perfect. I'm still learning how to stay. Naya met his eyes. I don't need perfection. I need honesty. Jacob nodded. His chest felt tight, but his mind was clear. He finally understood what the choice meant. It wasn't about fear or comfort. It was about courage. He took a slow breath, knowing that the answer he was about to give would shape everything that came next. Jacob stood quietly on the hill, looking out over the land that had slowly become part of him again. The wind moved gently across the grass, and the ranch below looked stronger than it had weeks ago. The fences stood straighter. The house no longer felt empty. For the first time in many years, Jacob did not feel like a visitor in his own life. Naya stood beside him, calm and patient, getting him space to speak. She had always done that, never pushing, never demanding. That was when Jacob understood the truth clearly. She was not asking to be rescued. She was offering to build something together. I will stay, Jacob said at last. His voice was steady. Not because I owe you anything. Not because I'm afraid to be alone. I stay because I choose this life. I choose you. Naya did not rush toward him or cry out. Instead, she nodded slowly, her eyes warm and certain. Then we walk forward together. Those simple words carried more meaning than any long promise. They both knew life would not suddenly become easy, but it would be shared. They did not hold a large ceremony or make a show of their decision. Instead, they told a few people they trusted. Some reacted with surprise, others with quiet approval. A few still whispered, but Jacob no longer felt the weight of those voices. What mattered was the life they were building day by day. The seasons began to change. The land responded to care and patience. Crops grew, animals returned to the fields. The ranch slowly became known as a place of honesty and fairness. People came not just for work, but for advice and help. Naya welcomed them with kindness. Jacob greeted them with respect. There were challenges, of course. Some days were filled with hard labor and little rest. Other days brought misunderstandings and quiet disagreements. But instead of turning away, Jacob stayed. He listened. He learned how to talk instead of walking away. One evening after a long day, Jacob sat on the porch watching the sky fade into deep blue. Naya joined him, handing him a warm cup. They sat together without speaking, comfortable in the shared silence. I never thought I could live like this, Jacob admitted. I thought strength meant standing alone. Naya smiled. Strength also means knowing when to stand with someone. He had learned that love did not trap him. It grounded him. As time passed, the ranch became a symbol of something deeper. It was proof that two people from different paths could meet with respect and build something meaningful. Children from nearby lands often visited, listening to Naya's stories and helping with simple chores. Jacob taught them how to care for animals and work the land. Years later, Jacob would sometimes ride to the river where he first met Naya. He would sit quietly and remember the man he once was, closed off, always moving, afraid to stay. He felt grateful that life had interrupted him that morning. Naya often joined him on those rides. They spoke about the past not with sadness, but with understanding. Loss had shaped them, but it had not defined them. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low, Jacob turned to her and said, "You changed my life." Naya shook her head gently. We changed it together. Their story was not about one saving the other. It was about two people choosing courage over fear, connection over loneliness. The land around them continued to change, just as they did. Seasons came and went, but the foundation they built remained steady. The old ranch, once abandoned, now stood as a quiet reminder that even broken places could find new purpose. And so, what the cowboy did next was not dramatic or loud. He stayed. He listened. He built. He loved. In doing so, he found the home he never knew he was searching for.